welcome kindreds, is Jessica the Story Witch, and that opening might have left you a little bit confused as to what the hell I was doing. I actually did an ancestry, like a DNA ancestry test with the company that I did it with. I'll link that down below. They were called Living DNA, and the reason I chose that particular company was because they have a more detailed breakdown of regions within the United Kingdom, within Great Britain, that of your sort of nationality, more honed down then, if you see what I mean. So that's why I chose to go with them, because I was interested in which particular regions of the UK my ancestors came from. And well, because I knew that the likelihood was that they have been from here for a long time, because I know a good few generations back, and they are Welsh. So it wasn't surprising when I got my results back to find that I'm almost 90% from the British Isles and pretty much all from around the South and West Wales areas. So that wasn't very surprising for me, although there were some interesting other results as well. Like, I've got some Sardinian influence in there, and some French, and possibly some Basque as well. So they give you kind of like their cautious results of where they think it's from, and then they give you a more kind of, it's probably this, but we can't confirm that now, because at the moment they haven't tested enough people to really hone it down that much. They haven't got that many other samples to compare it to. Excuse me. Had a little tickle in my throat. Why? What was the point in me doing a DNA ancestry test? And why am I talking about it as part of the A to Z of Modern Witchcraft series on my channel? Basically, I kind of got to a point in my practice where I was feeling like I wanted to dig deeper into my personal ancestry, my personal heritage, to see where my roots lie, to see where my roots are. Obviously, like I said, I already knew or had a very strong inkling that my roots are in Wales, and that has been confirmed by the ancestry test that for the last 20 or so generations, which is only, that's only over the course of about sort of 250 years, but that, that's quite a long time. My ancestors have been in Wales and around the sort of areas which I knew basically that they were from. So that was interesting to me. And what was also interesting, and I'm not sure how this is going to affect my practice, because that's why I'm talking about this, because I do think it is going to have an effect on my practice. I found out through my mitochondrial DNA, which is basically the DNA that is passed through the mother line from the X chromosome over generations and generations. So the way they talk about it, they talk about mitochondrial Eve as being the first female DNA that they can trace, and the whole technology for this, the whole science of this, is so in its early stages at the moment. I'm sure that in over the next few years now, this technology is going to advance so much, they'll be able to pinpoint things a lot more clearly and be able to understand a lot better about, especially about migration patterns, about where people have come from and how people maybe have got to certain countries and things like that. Because basically, originally, and this is supported by the DNA evidence as well as like archaeological evidence, human Homo sapiens, our particular species of hominids, came from Africa. As we probably all know now, we all originated in Africa, and that is where the first mitochondrial DNA, mitochondrial Eve, was from. And then as the Ice Age kind of regressed, and as more of the land became habitable, people did travel to different places. What I thought was fascinating was that we weren't the only hominids. There were other, obviously Neanderthal man is Neanderthals are kind of famous, but there were others too, quite a few different species of hominids who died out, and Homo sapiens have become, the kind of main, the only human left on the planet. Although lots of us do carry Neanderthal DNA, most people carry Neanderthal DNA, and probably other hominid DNA within our DNA structure, because we interbred with the other hominids who were around. Anyway, where am I going with this? I wanted to talk about my mitochondrial DNA, which is the type W, and it's type W31A, which I didn't know what the hell that meant, basically. So I've been looking more into that, and apparently that particular strand of DNA, that haplogroup, and the haplogroup is W, my haplogroup, is quite widespread around the world, but not very popular, as in you'll find it in lots of different places, but in only a small percentage of the population, if that makes sense. And in Wales, it is like less than 1% of the population is from that particular haplogroup. So I thought that was really fascinating, even though that my more recent ancestors are born and bred in Wales, it seems. Then a long time ago, and we're talking, 17,000 years ago, my actual strand of DNA more likely comes from Asia, from possibly around the North Pakistan area, though, like I said, the science is still in early stages at the moment, and there's not agreement as to what it is. So what implications does this have for my practice? As far as, digging into, I've spent a few hours last night just looking into it, and it is a whole rabbit hole of things to explore, which from my point of view, I'm loving it. I'm really excited about looking into that a little bit more deeply, well, a lot more deeply, and kind of working out what it all means, and seeing the kind of migration patterns, the sort of countries that my ancestors might have come through. Because as a witch, I feel our heritage and our ancestry is of interest. And I know I spoke about this a little bit in my E is for Eclectic video, where I also talked about cultural appropriation as well. So if you're interested in my kind of thoughts on that, then I'll link that video as well, so you can kind of see about that, because basically I do feel there are dangers in, if we start saying that only people of certain ancestry can practice in certain ways, I think that is dangerous. But then I'm also mindful of protecting those cultures which are basically being plundered by people who are just like, well, I can practice their culture if I want to. So I'm not going to talk about that again here. Basically, I do feel that my ancestry, I was interested to know, because I feel at home here in Wales. I feel that my roots are here, and I'm not sure whether those roots are Celtic, although obviously my hair is purple now, but naturally I am ginger or Auburn if you want to be fancy. So it seems likely that my ancestors were probably from those kind of Germanic tribes and Celtic tribes, probably Brythonic Celts who populated the country around that time, going back sort of 5,000 years ago. That might have been when they came, but I don't know. But, like I said, I do feel at home here, and I feel like the mythology of this country, I feel like the landscape of this country, the climate even, is home to me. And I didn't need a DNA test to show me that, really, but I was interested to see if it would confirm, I guess, what I already felt. And then the whole mitochondrial thing has thrown a little bit of a curveball because now I also have connections to places that some places I have never even been, like India, like Pakistan, like Finland. There's sort of I think it said 14% of people in Finland share a similar DNA profile to me. So there's even possibility of Norse connections, things like that as well. So it will have an impact on my practice because of the stories and mythologies that come from those countries, which originally I perhaps didn't feel connected with, but now I feel more, I was going to say legitimate, but I don't want to be like I say, you can only practice this, but I guess that is what it feels like. I feel more legitimate, more called to exploring those mythologies now that there is a chance that my ancestors were part of those religions and things. And perhaps you feel the same, or perhaps you feel like your personal ancestry is irrelevant to your practice. I did for quite a long time. I guess I'd always kind of assumed that I was a Brythonic Celt, and that's my ancestry, and Wales is my home. So I'd kind of had that root feel in my practice from the very beginning, I guess. And also, I guess, Irish connections as well, so possibly to Irish Celts. And weirdly, in my recent DNA, going back 250 years, there seems to be like an Aberdeen in Scotland link as well. It's only a small percentage, but that was like, I hadn't traced anyone in my family tree who was from Aberdeen, but obviously that is bringing a different type of gene pool into the equation. So it's things to explore, and whether it will have a lasting impact on my practice, I don't know. But at the moment, I'm interested, and I'm exploring, and I'm seeing how that goes. And I'm interested in your path, and whether your place where you live or your heritage has an impact on your practice. I know sometimes the place that we live is more important. Like if we feel rooted in the land, if we feel a connection to the land, then it doesn't necessarily matter if we were a native to that land at all. Of course, no one who's alive now was native to the UK originally. There was no indigenous people because nobody lived here. Everyone has migrated. We were all immigrants. So it's interesting, I think, and it's something to think about, and it opened up my understanding of myself as a global citizen and not just as a Welsh of possible Celtic descent. And there's no Celtic gene profile anyway, so you can't kind of prove at the moment that you are of Celtic descent, because it seems that the Celts were not necessarily a genetic ethnic group. They were more of it wasn't as homogenous as that. It wasn't as kind of clear cut as that anyway. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts on it, and whether you have done any kind of ancestry explorations, or whether you feel that it's irrelevant to your practice, like I said, and you don't need to. I would be interested to know, and if you've got any tips researching, especially that W3 haplogroup, that's where I'm going right now. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon.